I was 19, fresh out of high school, and desperately craving something, anything, to break the monotony of my sleepy town. My friends and I gathered at Riley's house, sprawled on her porch under dim fairy lights, sipping cheap soda. The conversation drifted, as it often did, to local urban legends. "You ever hear about the Drain Witch?" Riley asked, her voice dropping theatrically. "The one under the old storm tunnels by Miller Road?" I rolled my eyes. "Come on, that's just something kids use to scare each other. My brother told me the same story years ago." But she shook her head. "No, seriously. They say if you go down there at midnight and whisper her name 3 times, she'll whisper back from the darkness. If she likes your voice, she follows you home. If not, well, people vanish." The others laughed nervously. But beneath it, I felt a tiny twist of dread. I hated how easily stories like this crawled under my skin. That's when Jacob smirked. "Bet none of you would actually go there. Midnight tonight, let's see who's brave enough." Something reckless sparked in me. Maybe it was the sweltering air or the boredom that had been gnawing at me all summer. I found myself saying, "I'll do it, alone." My friends stared. Riley's mouth dropped open. "You're kidding." "Nope," I said, forcing a grin. "Midnight. I'll even video it." The rest of the evening felt thick. Every shadow seemed to creep closer. As midnight neared, I drove my rusted Corolla to Miller Road, parked by the skeletal trees, and stepped into the muggy darkness. The storm tunnel lay ahead, wide, circular, coated with moss and graffiti, disappearing into black. I turned on my flashlight. Its weak beam barely pierced the gloom. I recorded a shaky clip on my phone, whispering nervously to the camera. "Okay, guys, I'm here, about to call the Drain Witch." My heart pounded. I swallowed hard, stepping right up to the yawning mouth of the tunnel. Then, voice trembling, I whispered 3 times, "Evelyn? Evelyn, Evelyn." Silence. I laughed breathlessly. "See? Just stow." Then I heard it, a faint, gurgling giggle echoing from deep inside the tunnel. I spun, heart jumping into my throat. My flashlight flickered. The laughter came again. Closer this time, a moist rasp that made my skin crawl. My breath caught. I staggered back, phone shaking in my hand. That's when I realized it wasn't just an echo. It was a voice. A woman's voice, soft and syrupy, whispering from somewhere unseen. "Why did you call me, little bird?" I dropped my phone. It clattered into the weeds. My legs finally obeyed, and I bolted to my car, barely able to breathe. As I sped off into the night, tires screaming on the asphalt, I didn't notice the faint shadow slipping into my backseat. I barely slept that night. Even after racing home and slamming every door behind me, I couldn't shake the memory of that whisper, its wet, sickly sweetness curling around my ear. I lay in bed with the sheets pulled tight, my eyes fixed on the dim ceiling, listening for any hint of movement. Around 3 a.m., I finally drifted off. That's when the nightmare came. I dreamt I was back at the tunnel, my phone's light dying, swallowed by a suffocating dark. Fingers, icy and damp, trailed up my arms across my throat. Then I felt warm breath by my ear. "Why did you call me? Little bird?" I woke with a gasp. Sweat soaked my shirt, my heart a runaway drum. For a moment I lay paralyzed, certain someone stood right beside my bed. It took everything to wrench my eyes toward the corner. Nothing. Just shadows, breathing with my panic. The next day was a blur. My friends blew up my phone with messages. "Riley, OMG, did you actually go? Alive? You better have a cool video for us, lull." I tried to laugh it off. "Yeah, all good. Just stupid noises. Probably a raccoon. We'll show you later." But I didn't send the video. In fact, when I checked my camera roll, the clip was corrupted, warped with static. Only a single frame survived, so dark you could barely see my face, but with a faint shape behind me that looked horribly like thin, clawed hands reaching from the tunnel. That night, I stayed with my door locked tight. I even pushed a chair against it. I tried telling myself it was all nerves, that the legend got under my skin. But deep down, a crawling certainty told me something had followed me. At 1:13 a.m., I woke to soft scratching. Not outside, but from inside my room. My pulse hammered. I strained to hear. It came again, a light drag against the wall, near my closet. I whispered, trembling, "Hello? Who's there?" Silence. Then, horrifyingly close to my ear, though no one was there, a voice sighed. "Little bird, are you awake?" I screamed. Bolted upright, my lamp crashed to the floor, spilling glass. My bedroom door slammed shut on its own. I fumbled for the light switch, breath ripping out in ragged sobs. The overhead bulb finally flicked on, revealing nothing. No one. Just me, shaking in a room that felt suddenly colder, as if someone else had just slipped away. I sank to the floor, hugging my knees, tears burning my face. My mind whirled with denial. It's stress, lack of sleep. It's not real. It can't be real. But when I looked up, the mirror on my dresser was fogged over, though the air was dry. Scrawled across it, like traced by a wet fingertip, was a single word. Stay. The next morning, everything felt off. The house seemed hushed in a different way, like it was waiting. As I stood in the kitchen, pouring cereal with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, I felt a sudden, sharp chill brush along the back of my neck. I spun around, heart ricocheting against my ribs. Nothing. Just sunlight pooling on the floor. You're cracking up, I told myself. It's stress, that's all. But the illusion broke when I found it. A small, dark object sitting neatly on my pillow when I returned to my room. It was a clump of wet, black hair, knotted together, still smelling faintly of moss and something sour. My stomach flipped. I almost vomited. I grabbed it in a tissue, hands trembling so violently I dropped it twice, then flushed it down the toilet. The water swirled thick and dark for a second, like ink, before clearing. I stood there, gripping the edge of the sink, gasping. That night, sleep felt impossible. I kept jolting awake from half-formed nightmares. A woman with dripping hair crawling across my ceiling, teeth long and yellow, whispering, "Little bird." At some point, I must have passed out, because I awoke to find myself standing in the hallway. My bare feet were muddy, smeared with black grit that led all the way from my bedroom. My skin crawled as I noticed faint scratches on the walls, like fingernails dragging along them. I blinked, trying to focus. For a split second, I thought I saw something, a hunched figure at the end of the hall. Its head cocked at an unnatural angle, hair hanging in wet ropes. I squeezed my eyes shut. When I opened them, it was gone. My chest seized with panic. I couldn't catch a full breath, like there was a hand pressed flat against my lungs. I staggered back into my room, heart pounding so hard it hurt, and locked the door behind me. I crawled into bed, pulling the blanket up over my head like I was 5 years old again. My skin prickled all over, goosebumps racing in waves. It felt like icy fingers were combing through my hair, twirling it gently. I started sobbing, whispering, "Please, please, just go away." And then I heard her again. So close, it felt like her cold lips were brushing the shell of my ear. "Why would I leave you now? You called me, little bird. I'm yours, forever." My whole body went rigid. My vision blurred. The world seemed to lurch sideways. When I finally dared peek out from under the blanket, there were muddy, barefoot prints circling my bed, leading right up to my pillow. But the room was empty. Only the echo of my own strangled breaths filled the silence. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just haunted. I was claimed. The next few days blurred into a feverish haze. I hardly slept. When I did, I woke with deep, aching scratches along my arms and legs, raw, welted lines that stung under even the gentlest touch. I tried convincing myself I'd done it in my sleep, but the gouges were too deliberate, too perfectly arched, almost like someone had been tracing patterns into my skin. Worse were the strands of hair. Every morning I found long, slick black hairs tangled around my fingers, caught between my teeth, coiling around my toes. They weren't mine. I had short brown hair. One afternoon in the shower, I gagged and hacked up something stringy. When I pulled it from my mouth, it was a clump of that same dark, dripping hair, slick with bile. I vomited so hard, I nearly fainted. I tried calling Riley, desperate to hear a normal voice. As soon as she picked up, I stammered, "Riley, I think I'm losing it. Something's wrong with me." There was a silence on the line. Then Riley said, voice oddly flat, "Nothing's wrong with you. You've always been like this, remember?" My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about? Riley?" But the line was dead. When I checked call log, there was no outgoing call listed at all, just blank space, like it never happened. My hands trembled so badly I almost dropped my phone. That night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, trying to calm myself. My face was gaunt, eyes ringed with purple. I ran trembling fingers down my neck, over my collarbone. I froze. Beneath the skin, something squirmed, a tiny ripple, like something small and alive shifting just under the surface. I let out a strangled scream, pressing my palms hard against it. The movement stopped. I backed away, breath catching in painful gasps. In the mirror behind my shoulder, I saw her, the Drain Witch. Her face a rotted ruin. Eyes sunken, mouth stretched in a dripping grin. She leaned close, her breath cold on my neck. "You called me, little bird. Why would I hurt you? I only want to be inside you." I spun around, sobbing. No one was there. When I turned back to the mirror, my reflection smiled at me. But I wasn't smiling. My mouth was slack with terror, tears streaming down. Only the reflection seemed happy, head tilting with a grotesque fondness. Maybe I was going mad. Maybe this was all a breakdown. That thought somehow was almost comforting, because the alternative was so much worse. That she was real, and she had sunk her claws so deep into my life there was no tearing free. I staggered to bed, too exhausted to do anything but pull the covers tight and whisper weak prayers into the dark. My stomach twisted and cramped all night, like it was full of writhing worms. Just before dawn, half asleep, I felt cold fingers stroke my cheek. A voice oozed inside my head. "See? You're never alone again. Isn't that what you always wanted?" I curled tighter, rocking myself. A small, broken voice inside me whispered back, "Maybe I deserve this. Maybe I did this to myself." By the fifth night, I'd stopped pretending to be okay. I barely ate, my skin felt loose over my bones, my gums bled when I brushed. The scratches had grown into deep, weeping gashes that traced symbols I didn't recognize. Some nights, I'd wake to find my fingers still moving, clawing patterns into my arms, even in sleep. The worst was how reality had begun to warp. I'd catch glimpses of myself in windows or spoons, smiling wide with dark, rotted teeth. The reflection would cock its head, mouthing words I couldn't hear. Sometimes, the whisper slithered up from inside my own throat, curling around my skull. "Little bird, we're almost one now." That night, I woke to wet breathing against my ear. My room was drenched in shadow. I couldn't move. My limbs felt pinned, heavy as lead. Slowly, a hand slid around my waist, cold and slimy. Long nails tapped against my ribs. Then I felt it. Something pushing under my skin, wriggling through muscle like a nest of tiny, seeking snakes. My stomach bulged, rippled, tears spilled hot down my cheeks. "No, please, please stop," I whimpered. The voice inside me giggled. "Stop? You wanted me. You brought me here. Open wider." Pain split through me as something burst beneath my skin, crawling up toward my chest. I tried to scream, but only a strangled gurgle escaped. My throat convulsed. I could feel it climbing, its slick body forcing its way up. My vision swam with dark spots. In the corner of my room, the shadows thickened, congealing into her shape. Dripping hair, torn smile, empty eyes fixed on me with savage affection. Her arms opened wide, beckoning. "Come home, little bird." With a surge of panic, I bit down hard on my tongue, tasting copper. The pain snapped something loose in my head. I rolled off the bed, crashing to the floor. My body convulsed, retching. With a wet, choking heave, I vomited up a thick coil of black hair, slimy and twitching. It hit the floor with a soft splat. I scrambled back, sobbing. The witch hissed, eyes narrowing. The mass of hair writhed toward her like a loyal pet. As it crawled into her waiting arms, her grin faltered. I saw raw hunger, then fury. "Ungrateful little bird, you'd tear me out after inviting me in?" I grabbed the iron lamp by my bed, heavy, solid, and swung it through her. It met no resistance, just sliced through icy air. She shrieked, the sound ripping through my skull like shards of glass. The windows shattered outward. In a swirl of shadow and cold wind, she exploded into dark mist. I collapsed, lungs heaving, heart galloping so fast I thought it might burst. My hands were still streaked with blood and hair, trembling uncontrollably. But the oppressive weight was gone. My skin felt my own again, if only barely. I lay there for hours, whispering broken prayers. By the time the sun finally bled through my curtains, I was still alive. Hollowed out, but alive. The days after that night moved slowly, like I was wading through thick water. The wounds on my arms began to close, leaving behind faint, silvery lines, a map of pain I could trace with my fingertips when the nights got too long. My skin stopped crawling. I could finally look in the mirror without fearing who might stare back. I spent hours on my porch, just breathing in the sun. The warmth felt like a miracle. Birds came to the feeder again. Sometimes I cried just seeing them. Their tiny hearts beat so cleanly, unburdened by shadows. Riley came over one afternoon. She squeezed me so hard I winced. God, you've been a ghost. I thought something awful happened. I almost laughed. Something awful did. But instead, I hugged her tighter. I didn't tell her everything. Some horrors live better unspoken. Still, having her there, feeling her solid and warm, helped me believe in the world again. At night, I kept every light on. I played soft music until I fell asleep. And if I startled awake, I'd whisper to myself, "You're okay. You're home. She's gone." And for the most part, it was true. I didn't hear her voice anymore. The bruises inside me were slowly fading. Food began to taste like food again, not ash. Sleep sometimes came gently. Yet, sometimes on the very edge of sleep, I thought I felt a cold breath against my ear. Or in the shower, the water would swirl down the drain just a little too slowly, catching on something dark that vanished when I blinked. But I'd take a deep breath, press my palm to my chest, and feel my heart still thudding. My heart, my life, still mine. The night couldn't steal that from me again. A month later, I stood by my window, watching dusk bleed across the yard. A gentle breeze rustled through the trees. For the first time in weeks, I didn't flinch. Instead, I let it brush over me, carrying away the stale scent of fear. I smiled. It was small, a little cracked, but it was real. I survived. And somewhere deep inside, a fragile hope bloomed. That tomorrow might be brighter. That laughter would ring clearer. That the night, for all its teeth and claws, could be pushed back by something as simple as love and light and choosing to keep going. Because in the end, even haunted people deserve to heal. Even broken girls can find peace.